Hi, my name is Lin Nguyen, and in celebration of the little Air 3003 I've been getting in Diablo, I've decided I'll just record this demo. Um, I'm just going over a material demo in UDK that I went over in class, but I decided to upgrade the little shader a little bit myself. So what I've included is the ability to turn on and off the lights with inside, control reflectivity, control a lot more other things like the depth and strength of the actual room inside, and whatnot. Um, so here's an example of how the material instance works, and while doing this demo I'll also go over how in material instances in general work and how parameters and etc. work. So with that being said, an example of what this material does, it takes an image you make and makes it appear like there's an actual room or interior inside behind the window, and I can turn on and off the lights, and as you can tell, you can watch the reflectivity of the actual light or the window change based on the light inside the room. I have controls for all the tiling, strength, etc. All sorts of different things inside of the material instance. So let's get started. I'm going to start off by creating a brand new material inside UDK and go over some of the nodes and what they do. So with this, I'm just going to delete some of these instances just so you can see what they're used for. Delete that. Let's force delete that. Force and delete reference, potentially dangerous. Force delete this one. Alright, cool. And, okay. I'm going to do a new material. And I'm going to make sure this is inside my materials. I'll call this, what did I call the original? I originally called it Windows Mat, so I'll call this Brick and Windows Mat. I always make sure that my last part of the name describes what type of thing it is or object it is within UDK. That way, when I look back at this, I don't get confused. I can tell immediately this is material, this is a material instance, and this is a texture map, and etc. I click OK, and you should get yourself something that might pop up immediately, like so. For UDK, I do recommend having two screens if possible. This way it makes things a little bit easier. So let's go over some of the things I might be working with in here. It's important to know all the shortcuts. You can find them easily by typing in Google UDK material shortcuts, and there should be a huge list of them. I'll probably include that in my description, a link to one of those, so that way you guys know how to work with it. So let's grab one of the textures I have in here. I'm going to go to my textures right over here. There's a bunch of textures I have. I'll grab the brick C div height, and I'm going to go inside, and there are several ways to add textures from the content browser. One way is simply dragging and dropping the texture right into the material editor. This way, when you do it, it creates a texture sample node. The texture sample node cannot be changed within instance constants because it's not a parameter. In order to have anything that you can allow the user to alter afterwards inside their own little material, you can use a parameter. But again, remember this, that a parameter has a lot more overhead in the material. So unless you know you're going to use that material a lot all over the place and you just want to swap out textures, don't do this. If it's a unique object and you know you're not going to have to change your texture around over and over, don't use this, okay? But this is great for buildings because, for example, you have a whole city, you want to use the same exact base material, and all you want to do is change out maybe the bricks and make it wood paneling or make it metal or whatever it is you want to make. It allows for a lot of customization. So if I go in here and just type out texture, you find there's countless different types of textures, and the one that I pulled in is this texture sample right here. And underneath you see there's parameter 2D, parameter cube, etc., etc. These are all for different types of texture maps. Parameter cube is for cube map, normal is for normal map, etc. Just because it's normal map, we can also use the parameter 2D. This also works fine, so don't worry about it. So I want to plug this in real quick. Diffuse. Just so we have something we can look at. Alright, I'm going to go back to my content browser over here. And I want to right click. New material instance constant. It's going to have this little pop-up here, and I'll call this brick and, or I'll just call this building A. Building A. Or building brick C. Underscore mat underscore inst. So this way I know it's a material instance. Okay. The material instance wants you to plug in a base parent material. So I can grab my material that I just created. I'm sorry, I have allergies, so you can hear a lot of sniffling in the background. Going to materials right now, and here's my brick and windows mat right there, and I'm just going to plug that right inside. And I want to make sure I apply this because it wasn't applied. And what we're going to see now is my material instance, which I accidentally created inside of the texture. I'm just going to right click and move that over to materials. Alright, so if I look at this, there are no parameter groups at all, and I cannot change anything. So I'm going to go right in here and just drop this right on top of the building. And this is all we get. Okay, so I'm going to save this package out. Alright. So I'm going to go back to my material, and that's a brick and windows map. Open this up. I'm going to change this node type to a texture sample parameter 2D. Here it is. I'm going to delete this. And with that, I'm just going to go and select my brick C again. I'm going to load that into the slot right here, and I'll plug that right inside the diffuse. And I'm going to click the checkbox. From here, you can see that the parameter group now has one little slot, texture parameter values, and allows me to override the current texture inside. So if I click brick A div height, I can just check this box and say I want to replace that current texture with this one, and just like that it updates. Turning it off, we'll switch between the two textures. So if I had more than one building, I'd make multiple instance constants, give it a name that describes what is changed with that material, and apply it to whatever building I want. This just makes things work a little bit, it makes things a little bit more convenient, but again that also makes it a little bit more overhead. So don't do this with every single texture unless you absolutely have to. Alright, let's continue. So I'm going to open up the material again. And let's create several nodes for some of the things we already know we're going to have. So I'm going to have a parameter 2D here for bricks. I also want one for my windows. So I'm going to just create one real quick. I want to make sure my bricks are always on top of this and keep it consistent, that way I know where the map slots go. And when you do these parameters, it's also recommended you change this parameter name so you know what you're changing. And I'll call this bricks color, and I'm going to call this right here window color, or let's use diffuse. This way it's all the same, and I'm going to copy this and just paste it within my description so I know what I'm doing the whole time. I'll call this bricks diffuse. This way I stay a little bit more organized. And I'm going to select these two and just press Ctrl W a few times. This is going to be for the specular. and this is going to be used for the let's move these up much higher. For those wondering how I do that, I'm just pressing Control and Alt to select a round, and just hold Control to move that up. So this is going to be for our spec. Actually, we're going to do the spec a little bit different. We're going to take these and we're going to change some of the colors around. This is for the normal map that we're going to have. So that's going to be all the way down here, because we need some space for the specular power when we're going to play with it. Alright, so I'm going to go in here and change some of these names. Specular, this actually works fine right there, but I'm changing the description to bricks spec. And I'm going to call this right here Windows spec. Down here I'm going to call this bricks normal. Normal. Normal for this one also. And unplug the respective maps right into the location. So if I go back in here, you'll notice I don't have spec maps. That's because I'll be taking the existing color map and using their channels to make my spec map from. So here's my brick C normal, and I'm going to load that up in the bricks normal slot, and I'm going to take the window normal, load that up, grab my window color and load that up in the right locations. Actually, I have a spec map, I think, for the window. No, I don't have a spec map for it. It's okay, I can change the existing one to do what I need it to do. Okay, so with that being said, I'm just going to grab this, just drop it into spec for the time being, and we're going to change all of this in the end. But just to make things look and work right, we just have it attached. And now we can see that the normal map is now indeed working. I'll click the checkbox, this will update things. If I go in here, I can press L and change the way my lighting looks across the surface. Alright, so it's kind of working the way I want it to work. I'm going to go now, right click and save, because UDK is known to crash quite often. It is highly recommended that you go and save. So, okay, cool, we have that. Now I want to blend at least the window with the bricks. So I'm going to go and grab my window mask here I've created, and I'm going to drop that right inside. So with that selected, I just can grab my texture sample parameter 2D, and it automatically loads. So if I look at this, if you look at the name I gave it, it's called window underscore depth underscore class underscore window. That's because there's a depth map within here, along with the glass mask and the whole actual window mask. I believe I have a spec map inside the alpha channel of the diffuse. I can check that real quick. I'm just drop this right inside of my diffuse and see what pops up. And I indeed do have a spec map, so that's nice. I'm going to plug this right back to where it was. Also, another thing to add, you want to make sure your parameter names are different, because if they're the same, then whenever I change this one, any other texture in here that has the exact same parameter name will be updated with what the changes that I've applied to the original or any other one that has the same parameter name. Alright, let's try to add the window on top of the bricks. So this is where we introduce another node. It's called the linear interpolate So you go in here and type out line, you start seeing a linear interpolate node. There's several ways to create this node. It's also known as the lerp node. So simply go inside here, just press and hold down the L key and click, you'll see a lerp node pop up. This allows for combining of textures via an alpha. So if I take this brick and just drop it right inside, I can take my window, plug it right up inside. And there, turn this on so I can see a preview of how the texture might look like. And I grab one of these in here. So based on the name I have for this, it says window, depth, glass, window. So you probably don't want the depth or the glass. We want to use the window. So I'm going to grab the blue channel, plug right into the alpha, and there it goes. I can then take that and pipe that right into the diffuse slot. And you can see that the image now is right overlaying on top of it. Of course, this looks a bit weird. So that would be because I haven't done the same thing for all of these yet. So within the parameter name for this, I'm going to call this window masks. And just do that. I'm going to copy this and use it over and over again. Alright, let's do the exact same thing we did before. Just push all these back a little bit. Duplicate this node. In here, I'm going to take my brick diffuse, pipe that in. Grab my alpha channel from there, which has a spec map for this, and pipe that in with this, and you can see it looks nothing special yet. I'll plug it in. It's because I have a detail wood map I actually use for the specular. I'll just plug this in right here. Okay, there it goes. And we can see the specular now is affecting that. Let's do the same thing down here. Control W to duplicate. For those who aren't familiar with this material editor, I do recommend learning this material editor a bit before watching this video, because I'm not going to go over how to just navigate in here too much. I'm going to plug this right in. And again in the alpha, I'm going to plug that into the normal slot. Okay, and just like that, we have this working. And check that real quick, and we're just slowly building up this material, and now we have something pretty basic, and I'm going to save this. Save. So at this point, things are a little bit easier. So if I just grab my material instance, building C mat material instance constant, we can already see how useful this is. If I go in here and I want to change the bricks out, maybe to the brick A diffuse, I can turn on brick diffuse, change that out, grab its normal map, tell it to change that out right there. If I have more than one window, I can change out my window and the mask and the normal all in one go. Makes it a lot easier. And now we have that effect, and we can just toggle on or off pretty quickly. And if I made another instance, I can change the texture for that too. Okay, so let's get back to the material. Okay, so we're slowly building this. And if I look in here, I have a wood detail normal map that I'm going to apply on top of some of this detail. This is going to allow me to get some of the really nice grain I want on top of the wood. Alright. Other things I want to control is the ability to control the tiling for the UVs. That'll be nice. So let's start with that. Let's get the tiling to work. So normally what we do is we create a UV coordinates. So that would be, if I talk about coordinates, you'll see there's a texture coordinate node. You can also press the U key and click, and it also creates you the texture coordinate node. It's quite convenient. And when you plug this in, this allows you to go inside and change these values for U tiling and V tiling to change the tiling of the actual bricks or etc. This makes it kind of convenient. But because it's not a parameter, the user cannot go in and change how it tiles. And I don't like that. I want to be able to give the user control to how he tiles it. And if I were to simply use a multiply, we'll still have a little problem. If I use a multiply node, in here, or just type M-click, the multiply node pops up. If I just click and add inside and pipe this to the UVs, I can use an instance, or more like a single constant vector. If you use a normal constant by itself, you can go inside and you can pipe it through and change maybe how much it tiles. But the problem with this tiling method is it tiles U and V the same. It's taking this value, multiplied by the value I have currently inside my U and V. But what if I wanted to let the user control exactly how much to tile in U and how much to tile in V? I have to be able to go in and separate the U channel and the V channel. And using just a constant, I can't allow the user to type in anything because, again, this is not a parameter. Many of you who use the material editor are more used to the constant, but what we use is the parameter version of this node. So to do that, you want to look for a scalar parameter, which is holding down the S key and clicking. When you plug this in, the user can now change this value to whatever they want. But again, we run into the problem that the user cannot control how much in U or how much in V they might want to tile. What if they want fat little bricks? What if they wanted bricks that looked kind of different? And have this pipe right in so you can see what's going on. What if they wanted fat bricks, or partially fat bricks, or really long bricks? You can give them the opportunity to do that. So might as well create a shader that lets you do all of that in one go. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to break this. Break the connections for these. And I want to move this back pretty far because I just need the space for it. And pull these two back there too. What we're going to do is add a component mask. So we just type out component or com. This is component mask. In here, it allows you to separate your R and G and B and A channels. But what I'm going to do is going to be one of them is going to mask out the R channel, and the other is going to mask out the green channel. So this mask R, and this is mask G. And for those who might not understand what this is mask V, mask U. So I separate the channels. I can do a preview to see how it looks, and you can see how it's being separated. And see how that goes right there. We can then now control how much this tiles by itself, but then plugging that into a multiply. So I plug this into a multiply. Here's the parameter. I'm going to set the default to 1. And I'm going to call this parameter name brick tile V. Duplicate that. And this will be brick tile U. And if I just turn these on right here, well, let's pipe this right to the top instead. Put mask U right into B. And even though you can't see what's actually going on, it's increasing the strength of some of these, allowing for the U and V tile to be different. And now I need to connect these two U and V back together in one little slot. And what you want to use is an append vector. If I grab this, it allows you to take two channels and merge it back into one little image. So if I turn this back on, we'll take the A, B, and there we go. So if I go in here now and just change my tile into 2, you can see that it's changing in here. So default it to 2. I then pipe that right into the bricks. And you can see whatever I do here now affects all of that. But even at that point, I'm not happy yet. I want the user to be able to control the height of the bricks and see how strong all of that is. So I'm going to pipe in my height map, which I've already created, And that's stored within the bricks diffuse too. So if you look at it, it's called brick height. The height map is also inside. So I'm going to duplicate this. Pull that over. Plug this in here too. It's important. I'm going to add a bump offset. Bump offset allows for a bit more distortion. This is your parallax shift that you get. And if I plug this right into the height, and I take my appended vector, plug it into the coordinate, I get a little bit more height boost inside my texture. But I also want to be able to control my actual strength of my height map. So I'm going to add a multiply node, a scalar parameter, and I'll call this one bricks height strength. Plug the alpha in there, plug this inside, plug my multiply right into the height. It changes to, having it at 0 means that if I turn this on, there is no height added to it. Make this 0.5, you can kind of see how the height map is looking inside. There's tiling inside, so it's a bit different to see. But as you can see, there is a height map inside. It's a little bit gray. We can increase our strength more or lower. But it's important that this whole set plugs into every single one of these brick textures. If not, it just looks kind of weird. So let's pull some of these back a bit. Let's add the description for the node. And I'm going to take this whole entire section here, right click, add a new comment, and I'm going to call this bricks UV height, so I know what it does. And because I want to do the same thing to my windows, I'm going to take this whole thing, select around everything, and I'm going to duplicate this so you have more than one. And the problem about it is when you do that, there's a tendency that it grabs the extra nodes, so it's a little bit annoying. And your original ones are typically the one underneath, so I'm just going to grab the ones underneath. And shift them up. I forgot to grab one. And there it is. And I'm going to have to change these in here too. So it changes over to window. Window. Alright. And description for this also needs to be changed to window, UV and height. Instead of using the brick diffuse right here, I'm going to go over here and grab that. So I'm going inside, back to my content browser here, grab my my window. There it goes. Window color, and this one actually has my depth, so it's my mask I need. Go in here, replace it, and change all my descriptions for all of these. This will be called a window diffuse. But as you can tell, I forgot to change my parameter name. And because of that, all the bricks changed over. So I need to reload the brick to my parameter. And there it goes. I'll call this window height strength. window tile V, window tile U. Okay, let's plug these right in. So I'm going to take this, plug it right into the brick, and everything that has a brick map is now going to have it. My normal all the way down there, so it's going to take both of these right here, and I'm just going to move them. Just like so. So in there you guys are seeing that I did some tweaking with the strength. If I take this back to 0, my height is back to nothing. And let's go back in my coordinates here. Let's make this back to 1. This way I can control my tiling straight through my actual parameters. But now I have a brick height strength. Depending on how high this is, will make it appear like the bricks are going out a little bit more. It gives that little slight parallax shift. It sticks out even more. And careful, if you go overboard, it looks ridiculous. So find a good number to work with. I tried to type 0.75, but there. Alright, I'll stick with that right now. And my window height strength, if I look at this, it's the wrong one slapped in. It should be the red channel. That's the depth channel. And there now we can see our depth map inside. We control the strength for this too. If you look at it 0. Well, we haven't plugged this into our window yet, so let's plug it in so we can see what it's doing. It's always a little bit annoying to grab things from far away. And unplug this also. Do diffuse and the mask for it. And there we go. Let's change our tiling back to 1. And I can just make this 1 right now so we can see what's going on. And let's look at what this window height strength is doing. 0.5. You can see the windows coming out at you just a bit more. At 1, it's a bit too overpowered, so I'll leave it at 0.5. Actually, that's a bit much too. If you look underneath, there's a little line coming out of it. 0.3. And that works just about right. That just makes the window really stick out and makes it really like it's right on top of the brick, even though it really isn't. Okay, check that. And I'm going to save this real quick. Go inside, save my package just in case it crashes. But as you can see, the window isn't really that detailed. I just put a flat map on there. I wanted to be able to go back inside, control how my specularity and so forth might look on this, and add a little diffuse brick, or more like a wood texture on top of everything. So with that being said, I'm going to take my wood detail diffuse / normal, so my normal is my RGB, my diffuse is simply a grayscaled image that I'll multiply on top of the existing color. So with that, I'm going to use a texture parameter 2D in case they want to change out their little detail. I'm going to zoom all the way up so we can see what's going on. And being that it's going for my wood, I have to pull this up and pull these out. And here it is, my wood. So I want to use a multiply. And I'll multiply this channel inside with my current color. And I'm going to put that right into the B slot to see what's going on. As you can see, it adds a little bit. You can't really see it too much because it's not tiled enough. So I'm going to add a UV coordinates real quick. So you guys can see what it's doing. And let's tile this thing. Let's just do 10 by 10. And it's really hard to see what it's doing. And so what I want to do is I want to amp up its contrast so it's a little bit stronger. Let me change this real quick though. I'll call this wood detail norm diff. And in order to increase the strength of this little image here, I want to pipe it through a exponent, and I also want to increase its general strength. So to get your exponent, you can just have it just E-click and you'll get your power. It could be just power. It's called power. And this gives you a base value, which is going to be your image, and you need a scalar value of some sort. In this case, I'll control it myself, so I'm just do a single scalar, or more like a constant, and plug that right in and turn on power. This increases your contrast for the image, so the higher this value, the higher the contrast of your actual images. But as with how it works in Photoshop, you have to first increase your strength of your image in order to start seeing some of the exponent really work. So if I made this, let's say 5, it's still really hard to see, but you can kind of make out what's going on. And now I'm going to take this and I can multiply it right inside. And now you can see all that little detail that we didn't have originally. And this controls how strong the wood detailing is. You know what, I'll make that a scalar parameter, let the user play with it. So let's S-click, plug that right in, and I'll call this wood detail diffuse strength. And I'll default it to 3. And you can see the extra details added to it. This allows you to get a lot more detail without having to sacrifice with a significantly larger map. To get this detail on a texture map, you're going to have a fairly large map. Mine's just a simple, I think this one's a 1024 map. That way you just get really nice looking windows because people can walk right up to it. But now if they really look at it, they can see the wood graining on top of it. And that's what I'm going to use for my spec. I'm going to use my wood grain. I'm going to use these two exact values here. Press Control W. Actually, let's undo all that. Let's grab several of these. So the texture coordinate with it too. I'm going to shift this down to my spec area. I'm not going to use this window spec anymore. And I'm just going to pipe this right in to the B. Now we have our specular strength, and I'm going to change this name here to wood spec strength. I'm going to copy this name, paste it down here. And there we have all of that connected inside. So if I take this, make the strength even higher, we can really start seeing the spec start adjusting. But that's only adjusting the overall wood. We want to be able to control how dark and bright this is. So I want to add a spec tint, which is going to be a multiply, which I can plug the power right inside. I'm going to use a 3 vector here, 3 vector parameter. So we'll hold V, click, and you get a vector parameter. Plug that right inside. Turn this on. Plug this up to B. This will allow the user to go in and choose what color they might want the tint of the wood to be. In case they want to add slight tint to the entire thing, and maybe even darken the entire image, which gives us that little nice change. So I'm going to call this wood specular tint. And just like that, they can now control all of that little niceness. It's the same over here. I'm going to use a grayscale version of this instead. So I'm going to grab one of the R, G, or B channels, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to use a multiply node for that too. And as you can tell, we're already running out of space, so I want to shift some of these up. There that goes. Let's tighten these a little bit more. And here's going to be our scalar parameter. Actually, I want a vector. My bad. So V click. I'll put this into the B. This way there's a little less overlapping. Now I'll make this go into the A. Move this underneath. Pipe that into the B. And just grab one of these channels right here. Turn that on. Make this color. Let's just use white for now. And there you go. So the user wants to go in. Maybe change their specular strength. They can go inside. Or even tint. Maybe they want blue for some strange reason. They can have blue. And they can also darken it simultaneously. All in one go. And that'll change the specularity. All brick with the specularity color is kind of odd. So I'm just going to leave it to pure white and then darken it with my gray. And now I'll call this brick specular tint. And just like that, we have a pretty decent thing going. We're still missing the actual glass, which is looking ridiculous now because we haven't played with any of the masks for that. I have masks for all of these things. So let's add a window mask. And I have made an interior we can use. It is just a teapot. I made this in 3ds Max because I love the teapot and it's wonderful. So, you know what, I'm going to save this. I'm going to check this little box up here first. Apply the changes. Then right click and save. And you can see it's happening to everything. We don't want the glass to have that little effect on it. So I'm going to grab my interior image of this little teapot and I'm going to pipe that inside here too. So I have a lot of stuff going on right now, but we still don't quite have what we want. Alright, so I'm going to use a texture parameter 2D. I'm going to call this interior color, or interior diffuse. There it goes. And I'm going to use a linear interpolate, so I'm going to hold L, click, and I want to have this image go inside A, this image go inside B, and have the glass mask go inside the alpha. We can click this on and see what's going on. We just plug that right into, well, now we have these two images, and I have that added. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this back and pipe the multiplied image into A, and from there I pipe into B. And what I get now is I get this picture of a teapot that's laying right inside of that glass. It's kind of hard to see right now, but you'll be able to see a lot more later. And the effect we're going to do is we're going to add a bump offset, plug into the UVs, and give it depth inside. But we also want to be able to let it tile and all that fun stuff. So we're going to have a very similar setup like so. So let's do this again. So I'm going to take the whole thing, Control W, move this down, and again grab the one underneath, and move that back up into its correct slot. And this one I'm going to call interior UV height. And I don't have an image I'm going to use for this, so that's going to be gone. And it's just going to be the strength plugged right inside. I'm going to change this right here to interior. Interior. It takes a while building these materials, but it'll save you a lot of time in the end. So now that we have all of that set up, I'll pipe this right inside of that. So I'm going to move this up instead because it's going to be used on top only. Plug that right inside of the diffuse hue. And right now we don't see much of a change. What you want to do is use a negative value for your height. And this will push the room inside back a bit. Let's try a -5. And there you go. Give us a little illusion as if there are a room inside based on the depth. Okay. But we also need to have the mask applied to our spec. So I'm going to use the same mask here, which I already have created for the spec area. So create a lerp. Multiply right inside. And for my spec strength, I'm just going to use a vector parameter here. I'm going to call this interior, one more like glass spec tint. Tint, not tin. Paste that right inside. Move this down a little bit further. I'm going to use my glass to the alpha. From there I pipe that into B. This now takes a spec off of that glass surface. And I'm going to give this a color. Let's make it all white. So you can see we're changing all of these things. Let's do this again. Control W. I'm going to use this now for my normal map. I also haven't added my brick detail, so my wood detail. I'm going to take these two, duplicate that. And I want to add the wood detail to my actual wood. And also be able to let the user control how much they want to tile the wood stuff. So with that being said, I want to add another whole series of these, but not quite as elaborate, because you probably don't want to tile the wood more than one. I guess you could. That way you could have streaked wood, which would look kind of weird. That would only work for metal. So I'm just going to have the texture coordinate go inside of a multiply with a scalar. So this will go right inside here with the scalar parameter. And I'll call this wood grain UV. Make this just put 10 inside. Right here is already 10, 10. Might as well make that 1, 1 now. That's being multiplied, then plugged into the UV slot. Okay. And let's use the same exact one for all the others. Instead of having these lines go all over the place, I'm just going to move it myself. I just have it here. Because they're duplicated, this parameter, the same thing, makes no difference. Control W. This will be used up here. And there we go. Cool. Let's combine the wood detail with the wood normal map. And to do that, we have to first remove the blue channel from here so we can add it together. So I'm going to add a multiply. And I'm going to add a 3 vector to cancel out the blue channel. So I plug this right inside here. Plug this inside there too. And we're going to use a 1, 1, and 0, because red times 1 is going to keep it normal red. Green times 1 equals green. But if blue is 0, it multiplies the blue by 0, canceling it out, allowing me to add these two colors together now. So I'm going to use an add node. Add these two values together. And now I should have the wood grain everywhere. Which is fine, because it's then going to be plugged right inside. Masked with this tint. This tint is incorrect. I need to remove that, because we're going to use a different, we're going to use a 3 vector. Because if we don't need a vector parameter, might as well use a 3 vector, that way we can save on memory. And I'm going to set this to a 1 on blue. I'll plug that right inside the B. And there we go, it's completely flat for the glass. And from that point I plug it right into the B slot of the lerp. And there we go, we have all this happening, all this crazy stuff happening in here. So what's going on? We see all this weirdness happening, and this is due to the UV of the bump offset. So for the window, set it back to 0. For my height, actually I think that's a 0.5, makes it back to neutral. One of these. It's causing the offset to be kind of odd. So I'm just checking some of these values here. Let's save this out first though. And I'm going to save out this material. Alright, so let's find out what might have went wrong. It's always hard to tell sometimes when you have so many things going. So we have the mask going through, here to that, and we can see the biggest problem happens during the normal map phase. Alright. Let's have this all across, and for now, to make things easier, I'm just going to break off anything that plays with the depth. In UVs to go back to default so we can see what's going on. I'm just doing it for the window. Okay, so it looks like even the normal map, the mask wasn't working perfectly at that point already. It's weird because I know I set it up just right. Okay, as you can see, the height shift does make a difference in there. So what if I just plug the... Here's the window. That's updating. Oh well, I think I know what it is. I added an extra mask when I didn't need that. So I'm going to turn it off because that didn't have the UVs plugged into it. So use the green channel from this mask. I don't even know why I have a second one. And I'll plug that right in. And just like that, it's been fixed. So now we can see that there's a different spec for the glass, different normal map for the glass, and the wood, and the brick. It's pretty crazy how much detail you can get inside. All the little wood grain right inside that wood right there. The detail on the brick, and etc. Cool. Now we need to play with our, let's get our gloss to work decently. So let's use our masks again. And I'm going to take the brick, pull that down. Actually, I probably don't need this for the brick. I'm going to use flat colors for everything. Spec Power. So what does Spec Power do? Let's just look at it real quick. I'm just going to create a one constant here. Plug that in Specular Power. When this is set to 0, look how ridiculous that looks. It looks crazy. I guess if you really wanted a very stylized look, you can do that. It's super, super weird and flat. If this value is set to 10, you can see that a low value gives a very wide drop off. If I took this value and made it 80, it tightens it a lot. People might think you might not need this for brick, but I add it for the possibility if you were making a rainy scene, if the scene just had rain recently, the bricks would appear wet, and just to play with the gloss would make it appear as if it were really wet. So using multiple scalar parameters along with all these masks, we're going to create an ability for the user to control the gloss on every one of these surfaces. So that means I'm going to need 3 scalar parameters. Scalar is important. You know, I already have a mask here. Might as well just reuse that mask. And it has to be a scalar, and it cannot have color. Specular Power is asking for a 1 channel coming into it. So don't use a color or a tint because it won't work. So I'm going to call this right here Brick Gloss Strength. Copy that, paste it. I'll call this Wood Gloss Strength. And this one, Glass Gloss Strength. Keep forgetting to copy it and paste it in the description. As you can tell, when you're playing with parameters, it takes a little bit longer for things to update. With that, I'm going to save that out. Cool. And it's going to be a series of lerps. Okay, so always one with the glass and the wood. Pull this one back. And with the brick together with the rest. So wood in A, glass in B, green channel in alpha, brick in A, wood glass into B, blue channel into alpha, and lerp into specular power. Alright, let's make the brick have a overall wider drop off. So I want to make this a 30 or something. You can see we're already changing that, which is pretty neat. Wood, let's have that at a pretty low gloss. This is painted wood too, remember that, so it's a little bit different. So they could have put a glaze on top. So make that a 60. See how that looks. A bit much. Let's do a 30 also. There, a little glaze around it. And glass is a very high gloss. I'll make that 150 or something. So that way we can see there's a different type of gloss for each part in every section in here. And again, those can be completely changed by the user. These are just stand-ins right now, just so they have something they can use. So now we have specular power, specular strength, all these crazy things going on right now. So I want to pull these together so they're a little bit closer, so they're not all so far off. Basically cleaning up the material a bit. I'm going to add a comment around this whole thing. Call this normal. Here's my gloss. Oops, let's not grab the normal on accident. Move that down. I'm going to shift. I'm shifting everything down because we'll need an emissive soon. Right click, new comment, Specular. Gloss. I like using gloss more than specular power because that's what it looks more like. Alright. And pull all of these up even higher. Check. Alright, let's save that out because I've done some major changes. Okay, cool. Alright. Let's add some extra things. I want to add reflectivity. So this is going to work a little bit different. Let's tighten all this up together too. Alright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an emissive. I want to add the reflectivity right into some of these things and start adding emissive and all that fun stuff. So right in here, I'm going to grab a cube map, and they already have several inside of UDK. So I'm going to go straight to UDK game here and type out cube map. Now if I scroll down, I can find there's several different ones. I'm just going to use this one. I know it looks kind of ridiculous, but it'll work. There's sky, and apparently there's water on the floor, even though we don't have it. But oh well, I didn't make my own one yet, so I'm just going to go use this one. I'm going to use a cube, texture sample parameter cube, pull that right in. And I'm going to change this parameter name to cube map. Paste that right inside. And I'm going to use a reflection vector. This allows for reflectivity. I'll plug that right into the UV slot. And for now, I'm going to drag and drop this right inside the emissive so you see what's going on. Ooh, everything's reflective. You can see it across the board. So that means we need to play with our reflective strength for each and every one of these. Again, people might think that brick is not reflective, but if there's water on it, there is reflectivity. So, with that being said, let's break this off because it's hurting my eyes. Let's use our mask again. You see how masking is so useful? So I'm going to go in here, just Control W that, and just reuse this once again. And if we're using this, we got to plug our window UV back in there. Come on. Right inside. That way we can keep using this again and again. Alright. So, here's our cube map. We need this cube map to be flowing right into everything else. So, multiply, scalar parameter. Actually, I'm going to use, yeah, I guess scalar parameter will work. Scalar parameter will be fine. And this right here will control my brick reflectivity. Brick reflect strength. That plugs right inside. You can see how it looks. Right now I don't want my brick to be reflective at all, really, so I'm going to put a 0.02. Really low reflectivity. You probably can't see it at all. And then I'm going to have a wood one. So let's do another multiply. This plugs right into A. Another vector parameter, actually a scalar parameter, S click. Plug that right into B. And again, if it's glazed wood, because you put, if you're putting wood outside, you're probably going to put some sort of protective coating over it to resist water from, getting soaked up into the actual wood itself. That if it rains, there might be some slight reflectivity. So again, you're going to put some sort of reflective strength in there in case it starts raining. But you can see it just takes that into account, and we have another multiply. This controls the reflectivity for the glass itself. And I'm going to put another scalar parameter. In here, I'll make the default value, let's make it 0.5 or something. Glass isn't that reflective. Oh, I forgot to change my parameter name. See how it starts affecting everything across the board. So I'm going to call this glass reflective strength. Copy. Paste. 0.02 wood reflective strength. And using a linear interpolate, I'm going to blend this right into A, this into B, use the green channel to the alpha, another lerp, similar structure like we have the entire time, into A, B, blue channel to alpha. And plug all of this into the emissive slot. Now we have reflectivity on just the glass, and that looks crazy powerful. And that's because of how reflective our overall map is. So I can make this a 0.2. And you can see there's a lot less reflectivity, maybe 0.1. Alright, looks a lot more realistic. But that way, in case this is a rainy scene, I can make my specular tint higher and say, you know what, it is raining outside, and the brick is getting some reflectivity across the surface. And maybe I can tighten up my specular tint, my gloss strength because it's raining. The glossiness of the brick is going to be significantly higher, so that might go up to 80. And that just helps the user control how some of this looks like, which is pretty neat. So in a rainy scene, you can play with all of these little factors and make it appear more like it's maybe wet brick or glossy or etc. Right now my specular tint for this is pretty odd, but go inside and play with all these settings and get yourself some pretty believable effects. Alright, let's bring this back down to 30. Even then we can tell the reflectivity was way too high for the brick in here. And that would probably look a lot better. Now you have the more glossy looking brick, if you want it. So I'm going to bring this back to 0.001. So, or you can make it 0 so there's no reflectivity when you don't want it. Alright. And just in case the user wants to turn off reflectivity completely, I'm going to add the ability to do that. So I'm going to add a switch, StaticSwitchParameter, and I'm going to plug this right into the lerp, or lerp right into here I meant, into the true slot, and default I'm going to have it on. The parameter is be reflect, meaning Boolean is reflectivity on, be reflect, so you can see what that does. Oops, I did not mean to make a new one. My bad. Get rid of that. I'm going to plug that right inside the missive. So if they wanted it off, they can toggle it off or on, just in case they don't want to have reflectivity there. Alright, but still it's not perfect. The problem I have is, what if you want to turn the lights on inside the room? So I'm going to add the ability to turn on and off a light. And when the light is turned on, the interior is going to pop up a lot more, so you can see a bit of that more. So with that being said, I'm going to take this and do a desaturate. When light is on, it's probably going to make more of what's inside become the color of the actual light. So I'm going to plug this right into here. I'm going to do a constant and plug that right into the percent. Let's turn this on. Let's desaturate by just a bit. And then we're going to multiply a color right inside. And this color is going to be the color of the lighting that they might want inside the room. Most lighting in a room is a little bit more yellow, so I'm going to use a vector parameter. So the user can go inside and change what color light they want it to be. So maybe it's a orangish tint. Okay. Turn on the multiply so you can see what's going on. And there, light on and off. If you're turning light on, that's going to be a emissive glow. So I need to combine this light with the reflectivity. So with that, I'm going to now add a add node. So we can add the reflectivity with the light. If I turn this thing on, we can see there's going to be reflectivity added to this. But when you turn a light on inside, it's going to kill off most of the reflection you're going to see outside. So with that, I'm going to add a multiply above everything. And this multiply is going to weaken the overall reflectivity of the glass. So that being said, I want it so whenever I toggle on the light, it instantly makes the reflective strength weaker and then pipes that right inside. So here it is. So I'm going to plug this right inside. Let's make this, right now what's my reflectivity for my glass? My glass is at 0.1. Whatever I type in here is going to take everything and dim it down even more. So I just made 0.5 for example. It makes a big difference. And for now, I'm just going to add this right inside so you can see what's going on. Ooh, you see that? It's way overpowered. We need to pipe it through something else, a mask of some sort, because there's no mask clearing this. So I'm going to pull this out a bit more. Use a multiply this time. And I'm going to multiply this image with the glass, which should give me that masked out already. So then I can take this and plug it into the add instead. So now I have an interior with it on. If I were to plug this right into the B slot, you can see it looks much more believable for a night scene in case I have it. But I wanted to have all of that done with a switch. So for this to work out right, I need to be able to switch between the different types of lighting systems I have. And there's multiple ways. One is using an if. I can use switch. So I'm going to add a switch real quick, another switch parameter. Static switch parameter. And I want it so that whenever I turn on the light, reflectivity dims, this goes on. When I turn off the light, it changes out. So with this other one here, I'm going to pipe my add right into my switch parameter. So when light on is true, then do this whole network. If it's false, show this one right here. And this is B reflect, and this right here is called B light interior. I'm going to copy that and paste that into the description. And I'm going to plug all of this right into the emissive. So right now it's off, full reflectivity, nothing special inside. If I turn it on, reflectivity dims, interior light turns on. Pretty neat stuff. It pretty much does the effect that we want it to do. So with that, I'm going to check this. Save out the material. So now if you wanted to go in, let's say I open my, here's my new instance. You can see all the extra control I have in there. I can say I want light off or on. And you can just simply click this little button here. Let's check this on. Light interior, off, on, just like that. Simple toggle. Turn this on. Reflectivity, you know what? I don't want reflectivity. Turn that off. Reflectivity off. Reflectivity on. Very simple. If I'm looking at this right now, I'm gonna see, oh my gosh, my spec is way high. So with that, I'm going to look for my spec strength, and you see here, there's wood specular tint, and that color's too bright. Dim that down a lot more. Click OK. Let's turn that on, and let's look at the wood. Reflectivity for that's probably still too high. Oh, there's a none here. What is this controlling? Let's find out. Something I did not name. Ooh, this is gonna suck. But at least I can look at it by the color. That would be... that's wood specular tint. Ooh, here it is. This should be called interior light diffuse. Or tint. There it goes. Alright. Let's make sure some of these changes do work like they're supposed to. So if I took this color and really darkened it, okay, just making sure this is working like it's supposed to. But that looks a lot more natural. Then I can go in here and change my gloss. See, that's been changed right there. I can turn that off. And I want to change my gloss strength for my wood, which is 30 right now. Take that down to 10. Make that to 50 to tighten that. Wood specular tint. Oh, this isn't updated yet, so I'm going to close this because I haven't checked the box yet. Let it compile the shader, and there, it's been taken into account. I'm going to save this out again, and let's say I want another building. I'm going to take this right here, alt drag it. I have another one over here. I'm going to open up my content, go back to my materials, remove that text, right click, new material instance constant, and I can call this building brick a matte inst. And the parent, I'm going to parent my brick windows matte right inside. There it goes. I'm going to apply this instance right into it. Change my textures, parameter groups, texture parameters. Change out the bricks. Brick normal. I want more windows. So window U and V. Type 2. I have 2 windows. 2, I have 4. You can see the little effect in there with the little bump offset. I can tile my actual scene in there. This is tile U and V. I can make this 0.5 just so it's weird. Or 2. So there's 2 very thin teapots. I'm going to have teapots for every single room. I can change my interior height strength in case I want it to be a deeper room or a flatter room. It can all be changed, all with simple parameters. And I don't want the light on for this building. The lights are off. So I'm going to go back to my material instance constant. And I can go right into the static parameters right here and say, you know what, light interior off. It's the daytime, I don't need that on. So with that, like, reflectivity is on. Much better. So I hope this video was useful for you guys. It took a while to record, and I know it can get pretty boring just watching all this, but this is going to allow you to do some pretty neat stuff. And you can see what the switch parameter does. It allows you to really change things up. The interior can be swapped out. So if you use BSP, you can apply a different instance on each of the walls to give it different materials. I'm planning to upgrade this material soon so that you can control exactly which ones you want loaded inside. But for now, I recommend making a texture map with possibly 4 different images. So when you load it up, it just shows you 4 different interiors and just make them a little bit interesting. I do recommend creating the interiors yourself and then rendering them out. That way the perspective looks a little bit better. Alright, that's the end of this video.